Inspecting elements and discussing locators. Okay, so inspecting elements is probably the heart of any test automation tool, and any test automation tool has their own way in which you can inspect elements. With Selenium, two of the most commonly used methods are find element and find elements. Okay, these are methods here. Now the find element method returns you one web element, okay, and it's usually the first element that matches the specified selector. And the find elements method returns you more than one web element, and you would use this purposely if you want to retrieve a number of elements that share the same attributes. Maybe you want a list of web elements, and we'll show you how you can use both of these methods, okay? But to inspect these locators, actually, you actually have 8 different options as of the time of this video with Selenium, okay? So those 8 different options we call locators, okay? And these locators are actually ID, name, class name, tag name, link text, partial link text, CSS selector, and XPath. Okay, so to begin with, if you know your Java well, okay, you see how you guys can use this ID locator like this. Now, these locators, ID, name, class name, tag name, these are actually static methods from a class called by that is coming from the Selenium library. Okay, so you can see that these static methods are being referenced in a static way, and we're passing a string argument, okay, to these methods, and these string arguments will be basically the locator that we're using. Okay, so actually let's be hands-on with it, and let's go ahead and play around with this so you guys can get familiar with this. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and I'll use some examples so that you guys can understand how all of them work. Okay. So let's create a new class. Okay, and I'm gonna right click on the automation package here. I'm gonna create a new file, and let's call this locators.java. Okay, and in this locators class, I'll create a main method. Okay, and I'll make a let me just instantiate, let's use Chrome still. Okay, so I'll instantiate the Chrome driver here like this. Okay, remember that we need to import the WebDriver interface from the Selenium library and then the Chrome driver class. Okay, now for now this is okay. I forgot the new keyword here. Okay, happens. So let me go ahead and click this bulb here and import the Chrome driver class. Okay, now for the first few videos, folks, yes, we will be hard coding. I may be repeating some of this code over and over again, but as the videos go along, I'll show you guys how to organize this, and we'll be able to move fairly quickly. Okay, so here let's not forget to maximize the window, right? So or the browser. So we'll do driver.manage.window.maximize. Then let's go ahead and delete all cookies as well. Okay, delete all cookies, and we're good to go. Let me go ahead and declare a string, call it URL, and I'm going to go ahead and paste this link here. If you're starting to see, we're actually starting to write repetitive code, right? And when we start with framework design, this is something we want to avoid, but for sample's sake, we can do this for now. Okay, so we'll say driver.get. Okay, and I'll make a reference to the URL reference variable here. Okay, here's the thing though. We know that this is going to open Chrome browser. The browser will be maximized, cookies will be deleted, and I'm expecting Selenium to navigate to this website. I'm just gonna run this to make sure everything's working. Let me go ahead and close this class. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and run it, and Chrome browser opens, and we're good. Okay, now I want to send username and a password to these text boxes. Okay, so we have to tell Selenium to send this information to these web elements of this page. Okay, and we need to locate those web elements using one of the locators from Selenium. Let's see, even though we have 8 options, right? So we have ID, name, class name, tag name, link text, partial link text, CSS selector, XPath. We have to just use what's available for us. Okay, so when you are on a web page like this, okay, you need to open what's called the developer tools, okay, or DevTools, short for developer tools. You can do that by right-clicking on your mouse and clicking on inspect, and you'll see that the DevTools will open. All of this is called developer tools, by the way, okay. Or what you can also do, there's a keyboard shortcut where you can just hit F12 and the DevTools will open up as well. Okay, you'll see here that we have different options. We have elements, console, sources, network, performance, memory, application security. We do cover what's in these tabs with other types of testing. For example, when it comes to API testing, we talk about the network tab and so on. Okay, but here, make sure to click on elements. Okay, and here's where you will find the HTML information of all of the web elements on this page right now. Okay, you notice that when you start scrolling down, you may see the page highlight just a bit, kind of like this. Okay, here's where we will find the information to this username text box here and this password text box here. Okay, now I have this password manager from Bitdefender, so just ignore that for now. But you won't see these drop downs as I do. Okay, so I need to inspect this element, the username text box. The way you would do that is by clicking on this arrow here on the top left, okay, so that we can inspect this element. So once you click on it, you notice that even it gets highlighted a certain color. If I unclick on it, it's not highlighted anymore. So I'll go ahead and click on it. And then when I move my mouse across the page, right, you notice that I can inspect any of these elements: the sign in button, the forgot password link here, the password text box, the username text box, this image here, and other web elements of this page. Okay, so I want to focus on the username text box for now. So let me go ahead and click on the username text box. Once you click on that, you'll see that the DOM will be highlighted here with the information of the HTML information of this web element. Now let me stop there because I said the word DOM. So this entire thing here, this HTML document is in what's called a DOM, document object model. Okay, you can refer to it as the DOM, right? But you can also refer to it as the HTML information of this web page. Anyway, here is the HTML information for this text box here. Now, let's try to kind of understand this first, okay? Especially this is your first time. Every single web element on this page will have HTML information like this right here, okay? Every single element, though, will have what's called a tag name, okay? So the tag name is the first keyword after this open anchor tag right here, okay? And this is the tag name. Then after the tag name, you have what are called attributes and attribute values. Attributes and attribute values are specified in key and value pairs. So right here, this attribute called type is the key, and the value to this attribute right here is text. Okay, if we move forward, we have a name attribute here. Okay, and the attribute value to the name attribute is username. Then we have placeholder, okay, where the attribute is placeholder and the value is username. We also have value. Value right now is empty. We'll talk about value later, actually, especially when we start to interact with calendars and so on. But then we have class, okay? We have class, and then we have the attribute value of class right here. Then we have ID, okay? And right here you see we have ID, and we have the attribute value of ID, and so forth, okay? So you'll find a lot of the HTML information of this web element here. Now keep in mind though that every web element may not have a lot of this information. There are some web elements that just have one attribute and one attribute value. And then those web elements actually get a little bit more complicated to inspect or to locate, but we'll show you how to do that as we progress with the course. Okay, so now, right here, for example, if we look at our slides, there are 8 different locators: ID, name, class name, tag name, link text, partial link text, CSS selector, and XPath. Okay, so I'm going to go back here to this page, and I'm going to see first if we have an ID attribute. Okay, do we have an ID attribute? Yes, we do, and it's right here. The ID attribute value is right here called form username. Okay, so let's go back to VS Code, and after navigating to this website, let's do driver. Okay, driver, and now we're going to use the find element method. Okay, the one without the S, because we only want to inspect one element. So you notice when I type in find, we have two options: find element or find elements. Let's work with find element right now that returns a web element here. So I'm going to click on it, and then here I need to pass an argument. We need to say by. We need to call the ID method in a static way because it's static. It's declared in the by class. So we'll say by.id. And this ID method expects a string argument, okay, right here. That string argument is going to be the attribute value of the ID attribute on the web page. So I'm going to go ahead and close this statement with a semicolon, right? And I'm going to go back to the web page, and I'm just going to double click on this and just copy it. Okay, so I'm copying the attribute value of ID. Now I'm going to go back to my code here, and I'm going to delete whatever I had here and just paste that that attribute value here. Okay, so right now with my code, what I'm doing is I'm just locating the element. I'm not doing anything to it. Okay, so what we'll do is if I hover over the find element method, you'll notice that the return type is a web element right here. Okay, so what I can do is I can store this in a web element. We can do web element, and let's call this username text box like this, and then just initialize it with the statement right here. And then you may get an error. Let me go ahead and move this to the left. You may get an error here because we need to import a web element from the Selenium library like this, okay, as we've done before. Go ahead and import it, and you should be good to go. Now, we've just located it. That's it. We're not doing anything yet with this element. We've just located that element. So now what I'll do is I'll say username text box dot, and we're going to use a method called send keys because we're going to send basically a sequence of character to that text box. So you may get confused because it's not called send text. It's actually called send keys because Selenium is sending characters in a sequence to a text box. So let's hit send keys, and as an argument here, okay, we can enter whatever we want. So the actual username that we will be using is called general@teacher.com. Okay, this is the username that we will be, or that we want to send with Selenium here. So before running this program, let me kind of talk about what I did here. First, I inspected the element using find element method here. Okay, and we are locating this element using ID. Okay, we had to call this in a static way from the by class, and we're passing a string argument. That string argument is the attribute value to the ID attribute of that element. Now, this statement was getting a little too long. We can continue to write pretty much all of this information after this statement, but instead we just stored it in a web element just like this, okay, so that we may write just a little bit more cleaner code. Okay, so we said username text box dot send keys and so on. Okay, so I'll go ahead and save this, and let's run it and let's see what happens. Okay, so we run this, and there you go. So Selenium was able to send this username to the username text box. Okay, so go ahead and try this out. Okay, and it should work, assuming you inspected everything correctly and you wrote your code just as is. Now, if this website got updated, just use the updated ID attribute value for ID. Okay, in the next video, we'll talk about how to continue to inspect elements using other locators.